All right, guys, so today we're going to do two-step equations with distributive property. The very first thing that you have to do is anytime you have parentheses in your problem, you've got to distribute that number in front of your parentheses inside to everything in the parentheses so that we can get rid of them. All right, so after you've gotten rid of your parentheses, you're doing the same steps that we did the day before, where you have to undo your addition or subtraction first. That gets rid of your constant. Remember, constant is just the number. And then after you've moved that and you have your variable term all by itself, you've got to undo the coefficient using multiplication or division. So if you look at problem number 1, we got 2 times a plus 5 equals 20. I do need to distribute because I have parentheses. Now, when I distribute, I've got to take that 2, multiply it by a, which would give me 2a. I also have to take that 2, multiply it by 5, and I know 2 times 5 gives me 10. It's still equal to 20. Now, this looks exactly like what we did yesterday. We have adding going on because we have that plus 10. So I've got to do the opposite of adding. The opposite would be to subtract. So remember, you're going to want to take both sides and subtract 10. When you go to combine your like terms, the 10s cancel and leave you with 2a, and I know 20 minus 10 is just 10. Now, if you're looking at your 2 and your a, they're side by side, nothing is in between them, so we want to do the opposite of that multiplication, which would be division. We always divide by that number in front of our letter, so divide by 2. And that would give me a, because 2 divided by 2 is just 1. 10 divided by 2 gives me 5. So I'm done. I have a all by itself. The next one is a fraction out front. So, I know that looks really scary, but just remember you're multiplying your numerators together and you're multiplying your denominators together, all right? So, 1 I have to distribute because I have parentheses, so we're going to say yes to that first. When I go to distribute, I am multiplying 3 halves times 3. Remember, this 3 has a denominator of 1. So 3 times 3 gives me 9. 2 times 1 gives me 2. And I have the b. Same with the negative 1. It also has a denominator of 1. If they don't write it, you can just write it in. 3 times negative 1 gives me a negative 3. 2 times 1 gives me 2. Still equal to 12. Now, even though we're dealing with fractions, the process is still the same. So I have 9 halves b. I'm subtracting 3 halves. So I got to do the opposite of that subtraction, which would be addition. We want to add 3 halves to both sides, okay? So, I'm going to zoom back in. I have 9 halves b minus 3 halves. I'm adding 3 halves to both sides. So when I go to simplify, those cancel. And I'm left with 9 halves b, and then 12 plus 3 halves. Remember, when you're adding fractions, you have to have the exact same denominator. So right now, this denominator has a 1. I would need it to be a 2 in order to add these two fractions together. So in order to make that 1 a 2, I would have to multiply it by 2. And if I do multiplication to the bottom, I also have to multiply the top. So 12 times 2 gives me 24 over 2 plus 3 over 2. If I add those together, 24 plus 3 gives me 27 over 2. So I have 9 halves b equals 27 over 2. Now I'm trying to get rid of that 9/2. Remember from our one-step equations day, we have a fraction in front, so we have to multiply by that reciprocal. Remember, the reciprocal is just flipping that fraction, so we want to multiply both sides by 2 over 9. So those will cancel and leave me with b. And if I do 27 times 2, that gives me 54. And if I do 2 times 9, that gives me 18. I can simplify this down. 54 divided by 18 is 3. Now, I know I did this out using my head. Your calculator will do all of this work for you. So if fractions scare you, don't be afraid to use that calculator. Your calculator is your best friend, all right? If you're putting fractions in, just make sure that you put them in parentheses. That's my one tip for you for that. Now here are some extra practice problems. You have the answer of what you should get, so I want you to take a few minutes, try a couple of these, see if you're getting them right. If not, make sure that you're asking those questions so that we can clear up any misconceptions, all right?